Hey everyone, welcome back. Sometimes scrolling through my feeds online, I don't know, it feels less like connecting and more like navigating a minefield, you know?
I hear you. It's easy to feel like you're always one wrong comment away from like a total digital explosion.
Right. And that's exactly why we're diving into how to win friends and influence people in the digital age for this deep dive. It takes those classic principles we all know, well, maybe, and shows us how they're even more relevant in our online world.
Yeah, it's like we often think about the digital age as this totally new frontier for, communication and all, but when you get down to it, people are people, right? Whether
Hmm.
they're across the table or across the internet.
Totally. But it's easy to forget that when you're like knee deep in a heated Twitter thread or something.
Oh, tell me about it. The book actually opens with this idea of digital boomerangs, which I thought was interesting.
Digital boomerangs. Okay, I'm listening.
Yeah, it basically says that all that negativity you put out there online, it has this way of coming back to bite you, even when you think you're in the right.
Oh man. It's like that saying, you catch more flies with honey.
Exactly. Except online, those flies can multiply and turn into like a whole swarm of negativity.
The dreaded comments section pile on. Speaking of negativity, one thing I found super interesting in the book was that story about Abraham Lincoln.
Oh, right. The one where he almost sent that angry letter to General Meade?
Yes, talk about a digital boomerang, except, well, pre-digital. But still, it's a great example of how not to handle a disagreement, even when you're the president.
It's such a good story, though, because it shows how Lincoln, even with all the pressure he was under, understood that, like, really influencing people meant thinking long term. He chose to build Meade up instead of tearing him down. And that's something that's so relevant to how we interact online.
Okay, so how do we actually DO that? Because, I mean, it's not like we can have a face-to-face with every single person we disagree with online.
Right. And that's where this whole idea of the acute angle comes in. Basically, focus on what you want to achieve with your communication. It's not just about being right, but about actually winning people over.
It's like, take a breath before you hit send on that fiery email. Ask yourself, what am I really trying to accomplish here?
Totally. And that actually reminds me of another point the book makes about the power of affirmation. In a world that's so quick to criticize, taking the time to genuinely acknowledge someone can make a real impact.
Yeah, like going beyond just clicking like and actually letting someone know you see them
Yeah.
and appreciate what they bring to the table.
Exactly. And the book tells this great story about a young Muhammad Ali meeting a boy who stutters. And instead of just giving some generic words of encouragement, Ali uses humor to affirm the boy's potential, and I just love that.
Yeah, it really highlights that difference between empty flattery and actually seeing the best in someone.
Right. So much of what we see online is focused on, you know, ourselves and what we're doing. But imagine if we all made a conscious effort to use our platforms to lift others up.
Instead of trying to get more likes on our latest selfie, we could be celebrating the wins, big or small, of the people around us.
Precisely. And you might be surprised by the positive ripple effect it creates.
It's funny. We talk about building our brand and our online presence, but this book really challenges that whole me, me, me mentality.
Doesn't it? It makes you think about how we can actually be more effective by like shifting our focus to you.
You centered online.
Yeah.
Okay, now I really want to hear more.
Well, the book argues that focusing on the interests and needs of others is actually key to building genuine influence. There's this great case study about Andrew Sullivan, remember him, one of those early political bloggers?
Yeah, vaguely.
So he was already a successful writer, but he felt like something was missing in the online conversations he was seeing.
I'm guessing it wasn't like more opinions.
Exactly, everyone shouting into the void. So Sullivan tried something different. He added a simple you section to his blog.
You section, like what people thought.
Yeah, basically. Invited readers to share their own experiences, perspectives, all that. And guess what? Engagement went way up.
Because suddenly it was a two-way street. He was making people feel heard, not just, talked AT.
Exactly. It's so easy to forget that there's a real person behind every profile picture, every comment.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
We get so caught up in crafting the perfect tweet or whatever,
Yeah.
and we forget to actually, like, connect with the humans on the other side of the screen.
Right. And it's not even about just asking questions. It's about actively listening to the answers, putting down the phone for a minute and having a genuine exchange.
So less broadcasting, more like actual conversation.
Exactly. And the book actually uses this really interesting example of like this remote village where people don't just make small talk. They share their deepest fears and vulnerabilities with each other.
Whoa, that's intense.
Right. But it shows the power of vulnerability in building authentic connections. Now, I'm not saying we should all start oversharing on LinkedIn,
Yeah, that could definitely backfire.
for sure. But we can all make an effort to bring that same spirit of genuine connection into our online lives.
Okay, so how do we actually do that? I mean, it's easy to say be more authentic, but what does that look like in practice?
It starts with being intentional. Instead of just like skimming the surface, take the time to really engage with the people you're connecting with. Read their articles, check out their projects, ask thoughtful questions.
It's about treating our online interactions with the same care and attention that we would like a face-to-face conversation.
Exactly. And when we do that, we create the space for real human connection to flourish, even in the digital realm. But, building community is great, but you've got to build credibility too. You know what I
So
mean?
absolutely, especially online, where it's easy to get lost in the noise, building trust is essential. How does the book say we can do that?
Well, they highlight the power of humility. And actually, there's a pretty cautionary tale about this Australian businessman who, get this, misses a huge opportunity just because he can't stop taking credit for everything.
Oof. So how do we avoid falling into that trap, especially when it's so easy to get caught up in self-promotion online?
It's about sharing the credit, celebrating the contributions of others. When we're generous with praise and recognition, it shows that we're team players and people are more likely to trust us.
It's like acknowledging that we didn't get here alone.
Hmm.
There's always a team behind the scenes.
100%. And it's not just about sharing credit when things go right. It's about owning our mistakes, too. And the book tells this crazy story about a baseball umpire, Jim Joyce. He makes this huge call, like a really public mistake.
Wait, was that the Armando Galarraga perfect game?
Yes, the one where he was robbed of a perfect game.
Oh man, that was brutal.
Right. Totally heartbreaking. But what Joyce did afterward is what's really amazing. He owned up to it, publicly apologized to Galarraga, no excuses.
Wow, that takes guts, especially when you know everyone's watching.
Right. It would have been so easy to just like downplay it or whatever. But he chose to take responsibility. And honestly, I think that made a bigger impact than any explanation or justification ever could have.
It's like that saying, people might forget what you did, but they'll never forget how you made them feel.
No.
And that apology, that probably meant the world to Galarraga.
Absolutely. And it's something we can all apply in our online lives too. Whether it's a comment we regret or a mistake in a project, owning up to it with sincerity can actually strengthen our relationships, not damage them.
It's about turning those moments into opportunities for growth, both for ourselves and for our connections with others.
100%. And I think that's a great note to end on, don't you?
I think so. So to sum it all up, how to win friends and influence people in the digital age gives us this whole new way to think about those classic principles of building relationships.
It's not just about being nice online. It's about approaching our interactions with intention, with generosity, and with a genuine desire to connect with the humans on the other side of the screen.
It's about remembering that even in the digital world, a little human touch can go a long way.
So true.
Well, that's all the time we have for today's deep dive. A huge thank you to our amazing expert for joining us.
It's been a pleasure. Always love a good deep dive.
And to all our listeners, thank you for being here. Don't forget to check out the show notes for links and resources, and we'll see you next time for another deep dive into the fascinating world of ideas.